We are here at Dinton White Swan, and I'm about to tell you the story of probably my most momentous capture ever, Darren's linear. As with any capture, it doesn't just start last week. I'm going to take you back 2 years ago, 2 winters in fact, when I first started coming back down here. The only way I could get on was with a winter ticket. I couldn't even move. I got out the lake and I sat there, and everyone was there. Everyone was just buzzing.
Should we give him £50.7?
Yeah.
Woo! £50.7. Yes.
That particular fish, that Darren's linear, the one that you just don't think that you're ever going to catch. It just came along that day, and as I said, it still could be a spring to remember. Okay, so we are here at Dinton White Swan, and I'm about to tell you the story of probably my most momentous capture ever, Darren's linear. But before we go into that, I just want to say something. I'm down here in a swim called the Oak Swim. It's renowned for catching probably, arguably, not only mine, but everybody else's main target fish and White Swan's most well-known carp, son of Triple Row. I've set up in here today, this morning, and on my arrival I have found this penny. And on finding this penny, I reminded myself of a very well-known saying, that being, find a penny, pick it up, all day long you'll have good luck. On the other note, on the other hand should I say, is if you pay the lake will pay you back. So we're just going to do that right now. And now we're ready. I first started fishing down Dinton quite a lot of years ago now. If my memory serves me right, it was around about 2005, 2006. The only way of getting on back then, pretty much as it is now still to this day, was to get a winter ticket, and Simon let me on. I got a winter ticket, and I've done a couple of years. The likes of Bruno and the such were in here then, Sid, Twin, the long linear, fish like that. And as I say, I grilled it out a little bit, and in 2007 I think it was, I caught Bruno at £47, and the capture of Bruno was quite a momentous capture, if I'm honest. It was around about the 30th of December, I do believe, so it was just prior to New Year's Eve. Back then it was quite a lot different, and there were a lot of winter anglers on. The syndicate members of White Swan and the winter ticket holders, it used to do bites more frequently back then, and I think that's probably partly to do with the amount of anglers that were on. Nowadays, in the last 2 winters, it's been so difficult. At any given time, there was always 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 anglers on, and if I look back to that particular capture, I remember I was in the woods, in a swim called the Woods. Still a good swim today. There was, Bucks was opposite me, well-known angler that used to fish down here, still does fish down here. And I'd started to notice there was fish in a weed bed straight out in front of this particular swim, the Woods. And there was one little tiny clear spot right in the middle of this weed, in this weed bed. It was like a long strip of weed. And there was one little gravel spot right in the centre of it. And I was so used to fishing the swim, I used to come down, the rods were clipped up, straight back on the spot, bit of bait, fishing with boilies back then, as I still do to this day. And I used to see on a regular basis on the build up to that capture, there was often a fish that would show in that zone. And I knew that it had to be either Bruno or one of the newer ones coming through. But Bruno back then was, along with the long linear, was probably the two of the biggest well-known carp that was still in here back then. And as I say, I went on to catch Bruno from that spot. And if my memory serves me right, I don't know what the guy's name is now, but there was a guy down here who used to take the temperatures of the water all the time. It's something I just never do, because I've said it before previously. If I want to start taking temperatures of the water, in my mind, if someone says there's a cut-off point that you can't catch a fish at, I don't want to know that cut-off point, because I want to know that, as I've also already said many times, that anything can happen at any given time. Doesn't matter about the water temperatures. But this guy, that particular day, I caught Bruno. We'd done the pictures, but apparently he took the temperature of the water that day, and it wasn't until afterwards that he said, I don't know how John caught that fish. The water was at XYZ temperature. I don't know what it was. But yeah, so that was a bit of a funny thing. I never take the water temperatures, but yeah, this guy pretty much convinced himself that nothing was going to get caught that day, and I think he went home. On another occasion, during that same winter that I was on, there was a fish that I caught in the beach. It was a two-tone carp, and there's still a two-tone carp that swims in here today. I'm not sure if it's the one I caught, but I'll be intrigued to see the pictures when I eventually get around to seeing the pictures when someone shows me. But that was another half-decent fish that was quite hard to catch at the time, one of the older ones. But back then it was quite small. I think it's got a lot bigger now. I'm not exactly sure which year we had the floods on here, but everyone talks about the 2007 floods. I'm not sure if that was before I caught Bruno or if it was after that. So if it was after that, it would have been 2008. So in my mind, I can't quite work it out. I can't quite get the time scale right on that. But since then, the lake's come on a lot. Obviously, there's been the likes of Sid, the twin, fish come, fish go. Even back then, there was a fish called Triple Row in here, which is obviously still in here now. It's one of the big ones, one of the 50-pounders that I would dearly love to catch. You've got Triple Row, son of Triple Row, Darren's linear, John's linear, John's common, and the greyfish. And it's one of those fish that I've just mentioned that I'm here today to talk about the capture of which happened last week. In front of me here, funnily enough, this is the old swim where I caught Bruno from. 2007, something like that. Now completely overgrown, not so often fished. The swim next door, which is now just the woods, this used to be this was the main swim. And the one next door that's now the main swim used to be underfished. So yeah, they've sort of swapped roles, so as to speak. As with any capture, it doesn't just start last week, so we're not going to start talking about last week. We're going to take you back 2 years ago, 2 winters in fact, when I first started coming back down here. The only way I could get on was with a winter ticket, and that was 2 winters ago. I did put my name down for the gold card, which has now come up, but back then it was the only way on was for me to fish the winters. But as we all know, I love the winters. It's my thing, and I can put in a serious amount of effort during the winter months, which has obviously helped me today get to where I am now, with knowing where the fish are, what they're doing, where they go, and all the rest of it. So I started coming down at the start of the winter ticket 2 winters ago, and I put in a serious amount of effort. Simon's not too strict when there's no one down here. I'm sure he won't mind me saying that, and the regulars know that as well. It's a little bit of a, if he says you can carry on, you can carry on. So I have put in a lot of effort down here during the winter, and 2 winters ago was no different. I literally fished relentlessly right the way up till Christmas. I'd been doing quite long sessions, having a shower in the unit next door to the on-site tackle shop. I've been doing like long sessions, and I'll be going home for 24 or 48 hours, coming home refreshed, or using the shower here. I got one bite 2 winters ago, and that came on New Year's Day, I do believe. It was either New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. Yeah, it was New Year's Day. It was mid-morning. I dropped in on a few fish, and the sightings on here during the winter of any shows are so few and far between. They really are. You really have to work hard for it. Walking around day and night trying to find fish is just, it's an impossibility sometimes. But that particular session, I'd fallen in on a couple of fish, dropped in a sleeper swim down the top end, and following morning, New Year's Day, as I say, my mate Mad Martin came down. He was sitting with me, and literally as he sat down and I put the kettle on, the rod ripped off and we was into one. And that was a 28 pound, 12 ounce fish, beautiful mirror, lovely scaly fish, as a lot of them are down here. After that 1st of January capture, I still gave it my all, but I literally couldn't see anything to go on. The sightings became so few and far between. I was literally doing lap after lap, walking day and night, and like I say, it got very difficult. Towards the end of the winter ticket, we had the lockdown, and we were all down here in March, and we all had to go, and everyone packed up, and that was the end of that season, to be honest. And I was wondering when, if ever, I'm going to get back. My name was down on the gold card list. Was I going to have to wait until the following winter just to have another go? Fortunately, my name came up on that list and I got offered the gold card. But with the lockdown and everything that was going on, I wasn't really able to come down. And to be honest, during the periods that we were allowed to fish, there was 2 or 3 periods in the year, I can't remember exactly when they were, but it was quite warm. The anglers that were already down, obviously they were used to these fish being around in the certain areas they would go to each spring, the likes of Paul and all the rest of the regulars. I came down literally 2 or 3 times on that gold card ticket last year, and each time it was really quite warm and everyone was all over the fish. It's just not my style to sort of muscle in and go in between people just because they're on the fish. It's just not my thing. So I'd turn up, all the fish might be down the top end down there, and I couldn't get on them. So I'd often fish literally up the opposite end, totally furthest away from any fish that I could possibly get near to, just on the chance that I might be able to make something happen on my own terms rather than muscling in on people, you know, and getting in amongst where everyone else was fishing. But as I say, I only came down 2 or 3 times. Then the winter period started kicking in, and I thought, here we go, this is my game. So I'm gonna up my ante here. There was a period that we were allowed to fish leading up into the winter out of lockdown, and again I was waiting for all the other anglers to drop off, and that's pretty much my favourite time of year. Most of the anglers started dropping off. I came down, I think it was October, if my memory serves me right, and I think on my first trip I caught one. Again, funnily enough, out the sleeper swim where I caught the 28 pounder on the 1st of January. So that swim started to become one of my popular little haunts. So I had a low 20 pounder, not very pretty fish, not many scales on it, but it was a bite, you know. And soon after that, the shows started going very few and far between. They were so thin on the ground, really struggling to find fish. But me being me, I was never going to say give up, and it was that die-hard attitude of just keep on keeping on sort of thing. And I think, I can't remember when the lockdown got kicked in, But there was another lockdown, and then I think we were allowed to fish